This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me in this webinar this afternoon. I hope audio and video is okay. Can you guys hear me and see the screen? Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, Martin. Glad to see you here. So let's get going. As I go, feel free to type any questions you might have ahead of the webinar or indeed on anything I'm saying, and I'll try to tackle them as and when I can. It's always a pleasure. And if by the end of the webinar there's still open questions on this or anything else, there'll be a Q&A session. So I'll look forward to discussing anything and everything Darwinex with you guys. So the topic today is the trading with a fixed API. The reason that I programmed this webinar is I receive an increasing amount of requests by people who are not happy with MT4 and would like to move to something else. So let's go with the fixed API, which is the current option we have on this. And then also we can discuss a few alternative options, which we might be offering in the next few months. And I'd love to have your feedback on that. So the agenda is, as I said, to discuss a tiny bit on the fixed protocol, just to get you going as to where it comes from and give you some sources so that you can do more research on it if you feel like it. We'll discuss some pros and cons from the standpoint of a trader, an independent trader like you guys. I'll introduce the current Darwinex fix offering, for which there's a few options, as you'll see. And then last but not least, as anticipated, the Q&A. I really do hope that this meets your expectations going into the webinar. Otherwise, just let me know, and meanwhile we get going. So, FIX is stands for Financial Information Exchange Protocol, which means it's actually not an API, and it has over time morphed into a trading community rather than that kind of collates around the protocol. If you want to see more about it, they have their own website, and it's actually quite big. It's called fixtradingcommunity.org, and you have all sorts of things, including the latest implementations of the protocol, if you really fancy looking at them, which is the standard, as you'll see, but there are numbers of smaller sub-implementations, as we'll see. Because it's a protocol, it can be implemented in any language, so you're not restricted by programming on Java or C#, C++, or what have you. C#, sorry. It is widely used in wholesale environments because it was developed for the wholesale environment. It was born out of the need for the systems of different counterparties, banks, and so on to interact with each other. And it is conceived as a bilateral connection between two counterparties, which is part of the good thing about it, but also part of the bad thing about it, as we'll see in a second. And whilst in practice, whilst in theory it is supposed to be a standard, provided you are on the current version, which I think is currently 4.4, you should be up in theory up to scratch to communicate with anyone. But in practice, because it allows for custom tags, there are as many dialects as there are tag implementations. This is not to say it is hard to implement, but it is to say that you can't really assume that having integrated via fix with counterparty A is going to take you to integrate with any other number of counterparties without any additional effort, because you will have some additional effort, as we'll show in a second. So pros and cons. The main pro, I think, is the fact that you get direct access to all the available market depth, which is something you can't get from say, MT4. Because MT4 is a dealing system which only gives you one price. By contrast, the actual market price is made up of the depth of the order book. So let's say if we wanted to see the depth of the euro-dollar order book, you'll see there's the top of book, which is what you would see at, say, MT4. But then there's also the market depth, where you can see how much volume you have on the bid and on the ask side, how it's moving, and how you say your trade, your price is going to get slipped if you hit the market right now with a given amount of volume. And that allows you to introduce things like volume weighted average pricing, VWAP, which you can see here. So you basically see how much the price is slipped from trading at the top of book all the way down to, say, 10 million ticket sizes. And if you're planning on managing Darwin's, this will be something that becomes more and more relevant over time. So it is a huge pro. that you will never get properly from MetaTrader. Because it's order driven, it supports any order types, provided of course that they are supported by the counterparty, but you're not restricted in the order types that you can send via fix. And most of the sort of serious and professional trading interfaces out there, you can connect, you can basically use them to connect to any fix compliant destination. So if you're connecting via fix and you want to use like multi-charts or NinjaTrader and like any number of interfaces that you might like, CQG, what have you, you would be in a position to do so via fix, which is a big pro, as discussed. And then, provided it was, your strategy really requires the performance, then fix is superior in the sense that the fact that you're connected directly to the counterparty warrants lower latency, and also it can support higher throughput, of course, depending on things like bandwidth and the performance of the system. But there's no limitation in sending, say, tens of thousands of orders per second, assuming that's something that you were interested in doing in the first place. So this may be relevant or irrelevant depending on your strategy type. And last but not least, as discussed, the theoretical universal connectivity subject to the particular implementations. So the cons will be, as I discussed, in practice, there are a few standard implementations of fix. You'll have, for one, the multiple versions. So kind of whenever the standard is upgraded, you'll have to upgrade to the latest version of the protocol. And the dialogues. So it is, well, close to standard, but standard is a bit of a stretch. And mostly, and this is the biggest complaint I hear from people who've tried it and I've kind of gone out of it, is the fact that it's a complex to configure system because it's conceived for a bidirectional connection between two wholesale counterparties. So you have like a lot of coding around just the handshake to establish a connection with the pricing provider. You have to send a heartbeat. Otherwise, eventually the connection drops, and you might have issues depending on who your internet provider is whenever your IP changes and so on. So in many cases, people choose to have a fixed IP to avoid that sort of issue. But it's if you're really gonna go pro, I guess it's worth the expense, and because it is expensive, both from the standpoint of the trader in terms of the connectivity and so on, and also from the standpoint of the broker. So you'll find that most brokers require a minimum of trading volume or what have you to even give you the option of trading fix with them. And in addition to the price or the minimum volume, you might also be required to do some conformance testing and integration with the provider so that they know that you're not going to do anything silly, which makes it less than plug and play ready. So far, so good. Any questions, guys? Okay, sounds like we're good. So let's continue. So now getting into the meat of how you would use a fix with us. It also, I'll just take the occasion to explain you a bit of the background setup that we have in terms of sourcing liquidity for you guys. So at the moment, Darwinex operates two prime brokerage relationships, two PB relationships with the Saxo prime broker and the LMAX prime broker. The interesting thing about it is that both their offerings are based on the PrimeXM X-Core engine, which is a proprietary software to aggregate liquidity from different LPs. And that happens to be the same as our bridge provider. So basically, anything that's done through Fix through us is all sat in a same cage in Equinix LD4, which means latencies are just like non-existent. So how does the prime brokerage relationship work? I'll just do a bit of a digression here because it might be of interest to you guys. When you see, say, this order book, what you see, this is not coming from a single counterparty, but rather it's the synthetic order book built by the X-Core aggregation engine out of all the providers that are feeding prices and volumes into PrimeXM. So I think at present we have about 16 to 17 bank and non-bank providers in the Saxo liquidity pool. And then on the LMAX prime brokerage relationship, there's all the liquidity providers that are already in the LMAX exchange, which were like 12, 13 at last count. I'd have to check. I hope I'm not saying anything very wrong. Plus the possibility of adding aggregating the LMAX exchange feed that comes itself from the aggregation of a multiple tier of liquidity providers with a range of additional ones, which means de facto you're kind of connected to anyone that counts when it comes to providing liquidity. Interesting things about the landscape of liquidity providers is the fact that it used to be just banks. Lately, I keep getting calls from the likes of Citadel, the hedge fund, or IS Prime, which is the prime brokerage arm of the IS hedge fund in London, which is one of the biggest FX hedge funds in the world. They're all very keen in getting direct access to retail flow because it's generally uncorrelated to wholesale flow, and B, generally losing money, which means they get kind of money sent by the likes of Darwinex for free to them. So, there you go. Anyway, so coming back to the point, why do we have a liquidity a prime broker? Well, because being able to send trades or legs of trades to 17 different LPs, and then kind of as those trades are unwound, basically say, if you go long a lot of Eurodollar through us, so basically you would send that, if that was MetaTrader, you would send it to MetaTrader's server, which would then put it through to the bridge, and the bridge would source the best available price for that lot at that point in time. If it was a bigger trade, say kind of 50 lots, it might well get filled partially with different liquidity providers at the same time. And then as you unwind that risk, then it could be yet different providers that are taking the opposite trade over time. So for us to be able to cater to that sort of aggregation, we would have to have 17 accounts posting margin to 17 brokers, and that would make us as fully uncompetitive with you guys. So what we do is we have a prime broker relationship, and they have the relationships with them and just feed us the aggregate price, as you just saw. Did that make any sense? Because it took me a while to understand the first time I thought about it. Okay, so bottom line, what this means is via Fix, you can get either the aggregate feed from the 17 LPs, or it would be theoretically possible for you to connect to each of the LPs independently and route via the order routing engine which of the LPs you want to send the trade to, which might make sense when you're doing things like arbitrage trading, or you don't want a certain LP to know what you're up to, and so on and so forth, which are not issues that are of concern when you're trading a smallish account, but might be of concern when you're trading a bigger one. In practice, our fixed connectivity, what it does is really basically connect directly to the PrimeXM X Core, rather than via MetaTrader 4. So you're hooking directly into the venue that is itself providing the aggregation, which means there's just no latency once you have arrived in the Equinix LD4 cage where it's all hosted. Okay, so that's kind of how the setup works. There are, well, a number of benefits that you can have through the fact that the aggregation is taking place with Xcore, as I discussed, in addition to the fact that we could basically also offer you, even if you're still aggregating within your side, a joint risk engine, so that you don't have to post margin to all sides. And it is possible to open to trade, if you're going to go for the LMAX Prime solution, it is possible to have access via the LMAX interface as well, which can be practical for closing of manual trades or what have you. If you have any questions on this, happy to expand. So in a nutshell, if you decided to go ahead with the fixed connection, what would we set up for you? Well, essentially, we would set up a connector with a PrimeXM X Core. That connector would have, you would get two accounts, one for listening to the prices, the price stream on the left-hand side, and another one for sending the orders. And then as part of the setup, we could set you up in a way such that you can decide where each trade is going by either specifying in a tag that the trades go to the Saxo Prime Broker or to the LMAX Prime Broker, provided your account is small enough. If it was a very big account, we would have to look at ways to optimize the collateral. But generally it should be good with the kind of volumes we have now. If you were keen on seeing how that works, I can quickly go into the management interface for X control. So it's just that we have a few customers in here who are already set up in it. So you would get a connector, just the way like Alex, Ian, or Mark have got, and that connector itself would have, as I said, the stream account and the trading account, and we would specify to which liquidity pool the connection was set up. We normally, as you know, we don't apply any markups to the feed we get. And also, on request, we can't do this for every trade, but we could if we went to the dashboard. So we have the X-core stores the granularity of which liquidity provider filled which leg. So it would be possible to see for any given of your orders. So let's say we can go into the orders report just randomly here. So I'm going to go for an FX and for Darwinex MT4, which will have plenty of trades, and we just generate the report here. That's going to have the mother load of trades in there, and then we just pick a trade at random, and then you can have all the details around the execution of that particular trade, including the leg reports. So things like latency, timestamps, monitoring execution, slippage, and so on. This gives you a lot of access to getting anything you want as to how your trades are getting filled. Okay, so back to the presentation. So in a nutshell, what options can we offer you in terms of fix? So you can trade via PrimeXM with the Saxo Prime of Prime offering or the LMAX Prime of Prime offering. For this, you would have to implement the PrimeXM fix implementation, which is common to both because they are the technology provider to both ourselves, Saxo and LMAX, so there would be no extra effort in implementing with either. You could also, and this is something we're going to expand on, connect directly to the LMAX exchange, which has a range of native APIs, notably .NET and Java. So, and they're not bad. They give you access to market data, tick level granularity, and then they have the big advantage that whereas we have to charge you a $500 per month flat fee to connect to either of these two, which is the flat fee that PrimeXM charges us. So we don't really make any money on this. This is just passing on the cost to you. With LMAX Exchange, there are no limitations and there's no cost. As a disadvantage, of course, with the LMAX Exchange, you're only going for the LMAX Exchange feed, and you don't have access to the aggregation of either the LMAX Prime Broker or the Saxo Bank Prime Broker. But if it's a small amount of spread, it might be worthwhile for the savings you get in not paying the $500. And then, as I said, if you are a sophisticated user and have a large account, we could look into setting you up with giving you the option to aggregate yourself from the individual feeds of DLPs of your choice. But again, this is something that takes an effort, both from our side as also from the LP side. So it would take a larger account to justify the expense and the maintenance support. Okay. So any questions on the offering? Again, as ever, I'm available per email if there's things you want to discuss privately after the webinar. So juandarwinex.com, send to all. Happy to discuss that. But I have to admit that this API, like fixed API thing, was a bit of I've got a question here, so hang on. Long-time listener is going to ask me a question, but I can't see it. Right. When will our service be available in the US? So we can discuss that in a minute. Good timing. In the meantime, let's just talk about the core point of today. And basically, the core point is that we have increasing requests from algorithmic traders, and we know that MT4 has a range of limitations. I mean, it's got its good things, but there's so much you can do with it. So a range of people have been asking us for an API. And I've been promising this for quite some time, but now it's actually official. We've set aside a full team with the best of our guys to get going on building our own REST API. And there's a range of services that we would like to make available to you guys. The first of which is the opportunity to backtest MT4 algorithms, and that is already implemented. So from next week, if you develop your own algorithms and want to see which algorithm, which Darwinian grade they would get, you will have that service so that you know how good, according to the Darwinian algorithms, given backtest is. So that's already been implemented. But there's other things we could be doing, and that's where your guidance is very, very valuable. So there are things we could do, for instance, to facilitate the execution of Darwins, and we will do them. So whenever somebody is managing Darwin in the millions of size, he will hit issues around market depth, and we will start offering services to optimize the execution of those. We could also make available through API things like knowing what your deleverage is for your live trades in your live algorithmic account. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in or not, but we could do that if that was of interest. Also, we have access to a wealth of data. So, if you wanted tick level data with certain for certain assets and so on, in what format would you like it? How would you like to access that? That's something we can do, and we are willing to invest going forward. But over the coming months, we would be very grateful for any requests we get from you guys. I know a number of people like Martin. You've been extremely helpful in sending stuff from sophisticated algo sites. So feel free to continue doing that, because that means the world to us. And just generally any other issues you feel that we could do as part of Darwinex to support you as an algorithmic trader. So we have been offered the option of becoming a full LMAX white label, which would mean that you could essentially, any trading services you get from LMAX today, such as using their Java API, .NET API, would be available as a native service from Darwinex to you directly. So we would de facto start offering other services than just MT4 trading, together with the LMAX trading interface, the click and trade interface that they offer, which is okay. And also that itself is integrated with a range of other providers. So for instance, a lot of people have been asking us about if we would integrate TradingView as a charting provider. We know TradingView is already integrated with LMAX. So if we did do the LMAX white label offering, then we would be integrated out of the box with TradingView, so that you could open, say, a Darwinex LMAX account and trade directly from the TradingView interface, which is apparently an interface that a lot of traders are liking more and more. So those are options that, if you have any special preferences, feel free to share with us, because we're now in a period where we're still listening as we build our own API for what it is that can give you guys the best service going forward. But I mean, that's kind of I know that's something that takes time to think. So as any of you guys listen to this now or on the recorded version, feel free to send suggestions my way. As ever, it's at juan@darwinex.com. So I'll just type it here again. Send to all, because it's as I said, we're gonna do development in that direction. In fact, the REST API is going to be the core for a range of future development we will do. Initially, we'll just do the API for algorithmic traders to access, but we will also try to integrate our API with other charting platforms and do a range of other things. And that's going to be the priority for 2016, now that the investor platform is up. So with that, I have essentially covered the core of the topics that I had thought through for the Fix API offering. If you guys have any questions on that, I'll be very happy to take them. So there's issues on historical data for indexes and commodities. That would be great for at least 5 years. We are working on it. We have an issue right now, and that's another announcement I wanted to make. We have promised repeatedly that we will change to New York close. That is in the works. Unfortunately, we've hit a bit of a wall, in the sense that the history that's on the MT4 would go lost or have gaps if once we do the switch, and we are waiting until we've made a decision on that to populate the server afterwards with all the historical data. So Ricardo, to cut a long story short, we are aware that our history is not as long as we would like it to. There is a structural limitation as to how much history you can put into MT4 period, which is just by design of the MT4 platform. But now that we are not sharing the server with all the other Prime XM customers, and we have our own server, that limitation is a lot smaller. So we will make an effort to populate the historical charts. So that's coming. So somebody is asking if it's possible to access historical data for huge time ranges to fix, like the last 20, 30 years. I honestly, I don't have an idea. What I do know is if you're really going for thick level granular data, you could easily have gigabytes per second. So you might want to have the NASA hard drive to be able to analyze that in any level of granularity. So we have a question here. So one thing I don't understand, so for algorithmic traders who wanted to use fixed to trade, would they also need an alternate form of historic prices to enable their indicators to work via whatever trading platform client we're using, i.e. we wouldn't get the historical data via fix? So very good point, Martin. So the historical data is not available via fix. People like LMAX make historical data available through the Java API, which you would get for a same LMAX account if that's what you were using. And it is totally true, you need a separate interface to design the algorithm. So, and that's what makes fix more involved, but also more flexible. So a lot of people say would program the algorithm in R, which is quite popular with algorithmic traders. They would use a database populated with the historical data sourced through, commercially or through the API, the Java API in the case of LMAX, and all you would be doing through the fixed protocol and connection would be sending the trades. So the advantage of fix is, whereas MT4 is both the algorithm compiling module and the source of prices and the execution venue, fix would just be one of those components. It would be the protocol to send the trades through, plus a connection directly to the execution venue, and a listener that would feed you the live tick level data for you to store as you saw fit. But fix itself is not an environment where you could store anything, because it's just a communication protocol. So I hope that kind of made it clear what the philosophy is there. It would require you to build your own databases of historical prices and build your own custom indicators and so on. So it allows you to do potentially anything, but provided you're willing to do pretty much everything, if you catch my drift. So TFP, I haven't forgotten US traders, but I'll come back in a second. So follow-on question, if not using MT4, how would we access data such as account balance equity, which I use to inform position sizing and algos? Very good point. So that you can retrieve through the Fix API. You have services there to get those on request. And then as we program the REST API, that would be the natural place to get those. Okay, so whilst I keep waiting for other Fix API questions, let's get back to the long-standing topic of onboarding US traders. Okay, so I'm going to tell it to you guys like it is, and then I also want your feedback. As it is, the good news is, and this is now fully final because we have initiated the process, Darwinex is going to become an NFA-regulated introducing broker, which means we will be in a position to, so to say, onboard US customers by referring them to a US broker. And we will do the integration with the US broker of choice, more on that later, so that you can become a Darwin provider by trading with the US broker of choice. So that kind of means the timing for US traders, the clock is now ticking. And the question for you guys is, who should that US broker be, right? As you know, there's only 12 because it's prohibitively expensive to provide trading on leverage in the US. It requires, I think, own capital of 20 million, which is out of question for us for the time being. So the question is, if you were to choose an execution venue to provide a Darwin through, which one would that be? And the most obvious candidates are interactive brokers with whom we already have a relationship in Europe, and also FXCM, who has been kind of chasing us for a while on this. And since we know they've gone agency only, it makes them less of a bad partner to think of. Now, if you ask me, the ones I trust the most are interactive brokers. The snag is that interactive brokers do not offer the MT4 platform, and we haven't integrated with the trader workstation platform. That's something that could be done, but we haven't started that, and we have a lot of things on our plate right now. So the easiest option would be for us to become an NFA introducer, which we're going to do for sure. And that will put us in a position down the line to integrate with anyone in the US. And the easiest option to get going would be FXCM. So with this in mind, the way it would work and the additional benefit would be that you could trade either through MT4 or their, I think, trading station or trading view, whatever it's called. No, I think it's trading station, the FXCM platform. So you could have an account either MT4 or trading station through FXCM. We would hook that up into a regular offering so that you could offer a Darwin off the back of it, and we would pay you any success fees for that Darwin into your Darwinex account. That's how the whole setup would work. And in addition to that, you would get all the analytics and what have you from TradeStation, which would be a bonus. So US traders will not be able to trade CFDs, correct? So you would be able to trade whatever assets FXCM offers to US users, which will not include CFDs. That's the other clever question from Vlad here. But it's a start, and the reason we would do that is because we know there's a range of talented traders in the US who are not currently enabled to be Darwin providers, and they kind of feel silly to be missing out on such a large talent pool. So my question to you guys, and you can answer this privately, is I think we all know that IB has a better reputation than FXCM, but it has worse spreads and it doesn't have MT4. And I mean, to me, this has been a question that I've been discussing with like other fellow users like 50 and so on. You know, FXCM is not great, but it might be the lesser of a range of evils, and it might be an option to get going. But I'd like to know how you guys look at it, because by introducing people to FXCM, we would kind of be partnering with them or endorsing them as a counterparty, and nothing worries me more than partnering with the wrong type of guys. And I appreciate it's for us to make a call, but I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on it. Or indeed, if you think there's any other US brokers that might be a good option. But that's a story for down the line. So TFP, feel free to let me know what your choice is. But ultimately, the option will work as described. We would refer you to the US broker of choice. And some people are saying here Oanda. So I mean, we love Oanda in the sense that we know they are more solid than FXCM in the past. But the fact is, a lot of traders don't like them because of the high spreads, and that's the one thing that might be a push off with them. The other issue with Oanda is that they're pushing more and more their own platform, and Oanda is kind of much more of a core competitor to Darwinex. So whilst I appreciate they're a good broker, and I'll openly say that, I'd much rather less become a source of revenue to them by feeding money into their accounts than I would do with FXCM. But that's another story. So any more questions, guys? So So Ricardo is saying that MT4 has a range of limitations. It doesn't allow backtest and so on. Yeah. So we know MT4 is not the best out there. I mean, there are people who like it and who will not go away from it, but just as well, there are people who totally hate it and will never go anywhere near that. And right now, those people are not available to Darwinex, and those people tend to include a lot of good, sophisticated algorithmic traders, which is the reason that we're giving this topic so much thought. But I agree, MT4 is far from perfect. That's the reason why we want to offer something else as well. Okay. Okay, like it looks like you guys are. It's Friday afternoon and you're already brain dead, and or it's been so boring that you're already asleep. But anyways, it's been a pleasure to have you with us, and I look forward to upcoming suggestions and webinars. So unless you have any other question, it's always a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in upcoming webinars. One of them being the surprise webinar, where we'll do a major announcement relating to the investor platform. So looking forward, guys, and best wishes to everybody. Have a great weekend and happy trading. Bye bye.